First question.
I'll answer best I can here.
All right, this is a two-part question. First, how would you describe the type of government that we have?
The type of government that we have.
As a country.
Federally, state?
Well, our government structure.
Oh, well, that's, how would I
Well, maybe-
describe it?
I think we're over asking
Yeah,
that one.
Okay. Well, I'll just ask the second
I can
part,
answer
and
it
then you can
at a
answer-
state basis. What I've seen as a brand new legislator is I haven't seen efficiencies, I haven't seen accountabilities, and I haven't seen transparency.
And the second part is, what is the function, or what should the function of government be?
First of all, I believe that people set the priorities of government. You can't spend beyond your means, and within that group of priorities, you start and you fund from the top down to the point that your means will provide.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Why do you want to be elected or re-elected to this position, and what are your primary goals? What are your primary goals?
You know, initially, and I have to state that when I was asked to run for state representative, I wasn't sure it was something I wanted to do. I wasn't sure that it fit me. I didn't know that I wanted to get into the middle of politics, and that's what this position has, a lot of politics to do with it. But after I got there, I was totally convinced that that's where I needed to be, and I was totally convinced that I've never been more committed to fight for our people than I have been right now. Because at this age that I am, I've always had concerns about my government, which I've tried to find out and voice, but I've never had fear. Now I have fear. I'm worried about our government at a state level. I'm worried about our government at a federal level. And doggone it, if I can do anything to represent our citizens to get this country back, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it boldly.
What are the most critical issues facing government today, and how will you contribute to the solutions?
Okay, last night I did a teletown hall, called 30,000 people in my district. I did a survey asking what the priorities were to them. Number one, and highly number one, was jobs and economy. Number two, taxes. And then the others, there was quite a gap after that with the percentages. But those two were head and shoulders above the rest, and I totally agree with that. First of all, the taxes that come onto business and to our employers are going to affect the jobs and the economy. People are not working. We got to get people back to work. And I did another survey last evening that asked how many of you have lost your job, or you haven't lost your job, or number three, you've either had a decrease in hours or money. 45% said they were still employed at their job. 42% had lost their job. And the rest, the remaining portion, had either had hours cut or pay cut. That's devastating. And when you know that you've got that many people not working, we have about 335,000 people right now in the state of Washington that aren't working. And the problem, if you take Bremerton, Port Orchard, Gig Harbor, Tacoma, Yakima, and add all those populations up, that's about how many people are out of work right now. And in my district, the 26th district, 4,600 people are out of work. That's the number one priority, is to get people back to work. And I will do that to my very best ability through reforms, regulatory reforms, tax reform, get government off the back of business so they can do what they do best, and that's job creation and retention, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number four. If revenue increases become necessary in the future, given your choice, would you decrease spending or increase taxes?
Okay, first of all, it's not a revenue problem. When you have an increase in revenue by 6% and you have an increase in expenditures by 14.7%, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out we've got a spending problem. So I would say to you, we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. Are revenues down right now? Yeah, they are. But We had a problem with this prior to this recession, and the recession has only made the problem worse. So again, we've got to use what revenue we have, lay out what our priorities of government are, and live within our means.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. What would you like to see done to improve the climate for business in the state?
First of all, we have to work on the workers' comp reform. We have to get L&I straightened out. I am supporting the privatization of L&I. I think that needs to happen. We are one of the only states in the country that has a monopoly on how this is done, and it's not through the private sector. The other thing is you can't tax the employers and continue to add regulations on top of them without having unexpected consequences, or I think they're certainly expected. They're not going to be able to keep their doors open. And requirement after requirement, federal, state, local, God bless them, they are survivors. But how much can they take before they can't keep those doors open anymore? So I'd work on regulatory reform, flexibility so they can have profitability, so they can retain and hire more people, and I believe that's the cycle that's going to get us out. Already been working on it, but we haven't been successful so far.
Gotta get a few more people to help you.
I'm going to do my best.
What is the government's role in protecting the rights of private property owners?
You know, that's one of the things that started this country, was the protection of private property. And that's kind of what got me into politics. I had to stop and think about, and I need to share a story with you, because when my mom and dad got married, they had $5 between the two of them, and they made a joke about that. But they live in a country where it provided a means for them to do better than that. And my dad was a mail carrier, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and we farmed on the side. Everything we made through the farming went on the mortgage. Well, I was a little kid, but I remember my dad looking out and seeing a hailstorm damage and virtually destroy head lettuce crop. And I wondered why he was so sad. And he said to me, that money was to go on the mortgage. I started learning about the mortgage and figured it must be an important thing. And to my folks who were tired of being poor, the only way they felt that they could create wealth was through hard work and owning property. And you know what? That's the foundation of what this country is, owning property. And how many families, this is the only means they have of creating wealth, is through their property. And when you work hard to get it, and then you have so many restrictions on what you can do, what you can't do, and possibly even losing your property, it's wrong.
What's your opinion about the relationship between legislators and the public employee union?
Say again, what's my relationship or what's my opinion?
What's your opinion about the relationship between some of the legislators and public employee unions?
I've gone to some of the public employee receptions that they've had, trying to see what their issues are. The legislature becomes very political in that this is one of the holdups that we've had with privatizing the liquor business, privatizing the print shop, because the unions are fighting and have created a brick wall because jobs would be lost. Well, I want to offer a different perspective. The jobs that supposedly might be lost could be gained. These people could become entrepreneurs. If they've worked in that business, the print shop, the liquor store, or whatever, they could end up owning a business similar to that if it was allowed to go to the private sector. They could work within those same companies within the private sector. And I think right now there's very unrealistic expectations from the public employees, because my assistant is a state employee, but she is not a union employee. So she's taking all the furloughs, she's taking the cut in hours, the cut in pay, but it's not happening with the unions. And I have to throw that problem back to the governor, who hasn't shown the leadership to open up, which she could have, with an emergency crisis declaration. We could have opened up all of the contracts and had negotiation on how we come to the table and jointly solve the problem. That didn't happen, so they don't have to. The unions are within their contract. It is a contract. They're within their rights, but nobody is opening any doors to have conversations to discuss, we can't afford this anymore. Now in Kitsap County, when I was county commissioner, we found that we had a $2 million deficit coming up and we needed to respond right away. There were 17 unions and we called everybody to the table and sat down and talked about how could we work together to solve the problem. We did that. So I know it's doable, and I know that people want to keep working. And honestly, I'm not the one that needs to choose whether it's a union job or whether it's not a union job. The employers, I think, will work that out. The things that need to be discussed are discussed in that collective bargaining between the employer and the employee. But right now, it's not a level playing field, and that's a problem.
That's a big problem.
Could you explain your vote on House Bill 1329, which expands the reach of public employee unions? It was unionizing daycare centers.
Daycare centers. You know what, I'm sorry, I can't right now without, I can get that to you.
I don't know if it's the.
You know what I did on every single bill, because we had 3,000 the first session. I took, every vote that I took is in, the notes are in my green book of why I voted the way I did, but without having prior notice to look that up for you,
Right.
I can't give it to you off the top of my
I
head.
don't know. Would it help if you looked at it?
Probably not.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't have,
Yeah.
I'd have to read the entire bill.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to say to you that I have had an open door with the SEI union that has worked on daycare, they've worked on health care, and I have an open door with IBEW, who has supported me in the past with different trade union employment. And the reason I ended up getting their support was because of my work on trying to get a NASCAR track into this area to create jobs. And one of the most important things is the unions that have come to my door and that I've sat down and talked with understand that it's kind of like a marriage. There may be times that I can support them, and there may be times that I can't, but they will always know if I can't, why, and if I can, why. And that's the relationship that we have. So it's kind of a one-on-one bill, and when it comes through, I'd have to get that back to you. But I have notes to justify every vote that I'm taking one way or the other.